This is the Big O Show. This is the Big O Show.
Well, let's try it now, brother. Are you there?
I'm here, man. Can you hear me?
I don't hear anything, bro. I don't hear anything. You guys
Can you hear me all right?
at all? Anybody?
Yeah, I hear you.
Say it on the chat board there because it's not coming out. I don't think so. I don't know if we're hearing it here. Okay.
Hey, guys, I'm here if you can hear me.
All right, Will, you there?
Can you hear me?
I hear you now on Bill's headset. Okay, they hear you, so that's fine. I don't know, it's weird, but it's not coming through my headset because I hear myself, so it's kind of odd. How you doing, my brother? You doing all right?
I'm hoping you can still hear me.
Oh, yeah, I hear you, bro. I hear you. You hear me? We're good?
Yeah, I hear you clear. Good. So, all right. So we got a lot to figure out. Oh, man, I'm doing well, man. I'm on it like everything, man. Like everyone in South Florida, just on a high with everything going on. I have sports for months. We got the Heat, the finals, the Marlins, the playoffs, the Kings, the top 10. So much good stuff happening now.
I know, man. It is. It's awesome. Obviously, let's talk about the big boys tonight with the Heat and the Lakers. Something that we didn't expect that would end up happening. Actually, that the Lakers would, that the Heat would be here in the finals. And Will, when I start to look at this, you tell me if I'm being a homer. They have the best two players, but I still believe Miami has the best team and the better coaching staff going into this series.
I mean, I couldn't have said it any better, because the reality is this. When people ask me about, oh, man, how do you beat LeBron? How do you beat AD? I say, look, you don't really – it's very hard to slow down those guys. They're going to get their numbers. But if you stack this series, the best two players in the series are LeBron and AD, no question. You don't have to be a homer for either side to know that. But to me, 3 through like 7 or 8 on the list are all Miami Heat players. To me, you go Jimmy, you go Bam, you go Bourne, you go Tyler, you go Duncan. I mean, you go down that list. I don't think the Lakers have anybody as good as those guys after AD and LeBron. Now, look, saying after AD and LeBron is a lot. You're talking about 2 of the best 5 players in the league. But I still think as a team, depth in stretches of games, second unit, strategic things with coaches, the Heat have an advantage to be able to stay close, and they've learned how to finish in these playoffs and close games. And I think they will absolutely have a chance in the series to those who say that they don't.
When I also look at this whole situation, I also am expecting a team that should be challenging them at the three-point line. And do you believe what a lot of people think, that if you slow them down, make them a half-court team, that's going to be a major advantage for Miami?
Yeah, I mean, look, if you get into a shooting battle with the Lakers and the Heat, you're feeling good as a Heat fan. Because the Heat live and die by the 3, but they've gotten this far doing it, and obviously they have the shooters to do it. The Lakers are a different animal. Look, the Lakers have shot well from 3 in the playoffs, and they've had guys that are surprised, and even AD has developed that game. But to me, obviously, their strength is the ability to attack. And if the Lakers can look at the film from the Celtics, and I know that, Spurs, when they use the zone at times, he's going to throw everything at them. The best way to attack the Heat is inside, and that's where the Celtics have success. I think that's where the Lakers can have success. If the Lakers get in a slow down, move it around, try to find shooting, I think it's to the Heat's advantage, because the Heat are going to play with their pace and their space and their movement, and that's their game. If the Lakers start attacking and getting inside, I think the Heat are in trouble.
I was talking about this, Will, and this sounds maybe a little crazy or a little off the wall from me, I guess. But I think that it's either Derek Jones and I know Kendrick Nunn's shot has been, has disappeared for months now. He has not been able to shoot from the outside on a consistent basis for a long, long time now. But I really feel like their defense and one of those guys has got to help contribute on the offensive end to add another shooter out there on this team, because I think that's how they're going to win, is attacking the Lakers from the edges all over the place. Not just Goran and not just Tyler and not just the regular guys, but maybe a guy like Derek and Nunn, who did not get a lot of playing time in the last series. Maybe one of those guys needs to step up and become a part of that rotation. Do you agree?
I mean, I do, and I will say this. Not only do I agree, but someone will, that we haven't seen maybe in the last series, do something, and Spo will give that opportunity. Through the 3 series, right? They beat Indiana. All the questions about Kendrick. Kendrick comes in and gets quality minutes, has a couple of nice performances. Yeah, he struggled a bit, but he gave them a nice start. In the Milwaukee series, Spo trusted a bit more of Derek Jones Jr., his length and athleticism going up against the length and athleticism of the Bucks. And then in the last series, all of a sudden he pulls Solomon Hill out of nowhere and says, hey, Solomon, I like your toughness and your size. And while the statistics don't necessarily point to Hill being productive, Spo has said, I just like his defensive presence, his size out there. He's in the right place, and I think he helps us. So who is that person now in this series? I think the guest could be maybe Derek Jones, maybe Kendrick Nunn. And, yeah, those guys are on the court. You can't play 4 on 5. If you're on the court, you have to be able to do something production offensive-wise. And if that's going to be Kendrick, he's got to be able to knock down his shots when he gets the looks. If that's going to be Derek, he's got to be able to finish, what he does well, grabbing rebounds, putbacks, high-flying dunks. They need that person and that energy because, look, against the Lakers, as much as I said that the Heat have the better depth and I think have the better coaching, you're going up against AD and LeBron. You need everything you got.
I'm with you. Sports director from Local 10, Will Manso, joining us, of course, Miami Heat host. Will, the other thing that I was talking about, when Bam closed out the series against the Celtics with that last game, this young man has put the pressure on him from day one since he put on this uniform that he wants to be better and he wants to be great. And it looks like he loves these kind of challenges. And now with the Lakers and AD, this becomes another great challenge for him in obviously the biggest moment in his career being in the NBA Finals. I think that if they can get that Bam on a nightly basis in this series, I think Miami wins this series.
Yeah, and I think you kind of hit the nail on the head on this one. I think really Bam is the difference because if you look at the difference in the Boston series, Bam elevated his game from all-star level to superstar level. He went from 15-10 to 22-12, and the difference in that is significant when you're talking about a player in a series to make that kind of jump. And Eric Spoelstra got defensive earlier in the postseason when someone asked him about Bam being more aggressive. Remember, he said, you could shove it, all these different things. And I hate people telling me what Bam should do and who he should be. But all that aside, Bam is different now. He has elevated his game. He has changed it, been more aggressive, been more attacking. And the Heat need that Bam. Doesn't have to force things. I don't think he needs to force it. Aggression and forcing things are two different things. But when you're going up against LeBron and you're going up against Anthony Davis, you're going up against that caliber of skill, you have to match that skill with it. And the one guy on the Heat that has that skill set to elevate his game to an even other level is Bam Adebayo. You know what you get in Jimmy. Jimmy's a consistent, proven guy, but Bam still has meat scratching the surface of what he can be. And boy, it'd be a great time to see games see that player in these finals.
I know he's aware of this, Will, but he's got to make sure he stays out of foul trouble because, look, I like Olynyk and I like Leonard Myers-Leonard. Those are nice players, and they're nice role players off the bench, but they don't bring what this guy brings or most people bring on defense. These guys aren't going to be impactful on defense, and they're not going to command the kind of attention that this guy does. He is a complete difference maker, and they don't, see, at least if AD gets in trouble, they've got two pretty decent defensive-type centers that can help them out, and those kind of if you lose Bam because of foul trouble, it becomes absolutely crippling for this team.
Yeah, and I think, it's funny, Bam knows that. He was asked about it yesterday. I listened into his media session. He said, look, my biggest thing is I got to keep myself, but I got to avoid the ticky-tack fouls. I just can't get ticky-tack fouls. And we saw there were times in this postseason.
The reach-ins you're talking about.
Where, and it comes from a good place because it comes from Bam trying to make a play, but you got to be smart. If a guy's got a rebound on you and you're there, just let it go. Don't try to reach in and grab it or get that, loose ball that he's getting and gather him, and then you can hit a guy's legs. You just got to avoid those fouls. And, again, it comes from a good place because Bam has so much energy and effort, but they cannot go anywhere with Bam getting in foul trouble. I'll be honest with you. To me, the most stressful moments of the Heat game are non-Bam minutes. When Bam isn't on the court, they're a completely different team because not only what he does defensively, but he brings the ball up the court. He stands at the top of the key and facilitates the offense. To see a guy of his size and ability to do that is so rare, and they need him on the court as much as possible.
Are you expecting a little bit of what they did in the Celtics with LeBron, that they're going to pick him up early in half court or somewhere around there, and then have that help defense ready to kind of slow him down and slow that offense down, because they don't want to get in some kind of a track meet with these guys. So how do they do that, Will? What are you expecting?
I mean, we saw the blueprint a bit with the Giannis series before Giannis got hurt with the Bucks. You know, the way that they would have four guys on Giannis, and they could basically build a wall around them. And I think that's an efficient and effective way to do it. The problem is, you can't lose sight of AD, and LeBron is so good at finding his teammates. I will happily allow other guys to shoot shots and LeBron give it up, except Anthony Davis. Anthony Davis is a force. So LeBron's going to do his best to get around that. But LeBron is a great basketball player, high IQ. He's going to find his guys. So for the Heat, it's a matter of not only collapsing him and stopping him just as he's crossing half court, but making sure that doesn't mean that Anthony Davis then finds the basket one-on-one or gets the ball close to the basket with easy layups and dunks. And, there's nobody on the Heat that can truly contain Davis once he gets on those low blocks and he's down there by the basket. I mean, that's just it's too much to ask. But I do think that is the start. Look, we saw it. The funny thing is, in the early season matchups, which seemed like 10 years ago, James Johnson was asked to do that. And JJ was, as a big body, was kind of the first line of defense as LeBron crossed half court. And I think you could see some of that today with a couple of guys starting tonight to try that, because I think it's worked and it's been effective. But again, when it comes to LeBron, he's so smart. He makes the right basketball plays. It can burn you. There's no doubt about it. Where Giannis couldn't figure it out and he couldn't handle it, LeBron absolutely has a different set of skills and I think basketball IQ to be able to handle it.
Yeah, so you're expecting Butler, Jay Crowder, you're expecting Iggy, all these kind of guys to kind of take a little piece of the responsibility of trying to at least slow LeBron down.
Yeah, we saw. I think Giannis is the blueprint. I think Jay. It's a good point. We bring up Jay. Look, Jay struggled with his shooting, but the one thing he doesn't struggle with is his effort on defense and buying guys up. Right. And they need him. They need Iggy. They need those guys to provide that muscle.
Yeah, and I got to tell you, I was already having a problem at the last game of the Celtics series, because Crowder has been in a complete. He's kind of gone back to really what he is at three-point range. He's really not that good. It's like watching Rondo for the Lakers hit three-pointers. Jay Crowder and Rondo aren't going to be guys that's supposed to hit the three-pointer on a consistent basis. And in the final games of that Celtics series, outside of Game 1, he was in a funk for those 5 games, and I think that's something that they've got to get a feel for early on, Will, that if he's off, get off of that and pass the ball and settle for a 2, but you can't keep going 0 of 7 and 1 of 6 and 3 of 10 and those kind of things. He's been hurting them from 3 lately.
Yeah, and I think Spo has said throughout, keep shooting. But as the series went on against the Celtics, he was quicker to pull Jay in some moments and go a different way. Because the reality is this: Jay's going to keep getting open looks. There's no doubt about that. Yeah. But like you said, if he starts up 0-3, 0-4, and he's not hitting them, and he's struggling, you just can't keep going to that. You just can't. You have to, at some point, you have enough shooters and enough balance on this team that you can't let, and especially with the Lakers, because here's the issue with the Lakers. Unlike the Celtics, who had issues holding leads, and the Celtics, he made those 2 big comebacks in Game 1 and 2. If you get buried in a hole against the Lakers, it's going to be very hard to come back. I'm talking about a hole within a game. So if you're down, 57-40 early, to come back on the Lakers, it's just, you could do it against the Boston team. Against the Lakers, the way they play, it's just very, very difficult to come back, and you can't allow a couple of players that are cold to keep just shooting and missing shots as you get in that kind of hole.
Is there a guy that, I'll explain it this way, Will. You got to fear Goran because he can get hot and beat you, and Tyler can get hot and beat you, and Jimmy can get hot and beat you, and Bam can get hot and beat you. There's a slew of guys. For the Lakers, once we get out of LeBron and AD, is there really a guy to fear?
I mean, this is why I was telling you earlier, you have quality players. You already mentioned Rondo. We have, you talk about Kuzma. You talk about these guys. I mean, clearly they have players. It's not, they have some solid players, but when you look at guys that could take over a game, I mean, they don't have Tyler Hero. What Tyler Hero did, the Lakers have a guy who's allowed to score 37 off the bench.
No.
You know, they're going to have a guy that's like Goran Dragic, you know, do the things he does, the way he took over game 1 and 2 against Boston at 29 and 25. Like Jimmy Butler, we already saw what his explosion. We saw what Bam did. We see with Duncan, when he gets hot, he can hit 5, 6, 7 threes. Again, it's hard to say you set aside LeBron and AD, because how do you set aside 2 future Hall of Famers, 2 of the top 5 players in the league? But when you get by the incredible top 2 players they have, the Heat have a significant advantage, in my opinion, and I think you agree, to be able to kind of stay close in these games, have a couple of guys get hot, and win these games late.
Yeah, I'm with you there. Will Manso, of course, sports director for Local 10, joining us, and Heat host. Will, when you look at the game tonight, what's your prediction? I got Heat in 6. I'm going with the complete homer approach. I think they're going to shoot the hell out of them in this series, and I think that's what's going to end up winning is the half court and bombarding them from 3.
And look, we didn't talk about this beforehand, but I said Heat in 6 against Boston. I think Heat in 6 against LA. As great as the Lakers have 2 amazing players, I think the Heat are a better all-around team in the sense that I think they could go out and hit lights out, 40% from 3, hit 17 of 42 from 3, and just bombard you with that and play aggressive enough defense to pull out games. I really do, and I know that's a homer pick, and I get it. That's all right. We cover this team. We're in Miami. I get it, but just from a strategic basketball standpoint, I like what the Heat can do against this Lakers team. I feel they have the right makeup to win these games in this style. Now, if the Heat don't hit their threes, Lakers are going to win this series in 5, and that's just the reality of it. Because if the Heat not shooting threes, forget about it. They have no chance.
No, I'm with you. The Marlins, my brother, you know your baseball. You're a seam head. You're one of the few that's left on this planet. Just out of curiosity, you're feeling this too, right? 3-game set, my brother. We've watched enough baseball. Anybody can win in baseball in a 3-game set.
Yeah, and when you look at their 3 starters, I mean, you got Sandy, Sixto, Pablo. Those are 3 young guns, and these guys don't have enough experience, and it may come back to hurt them in the postseason. But my goodness, to me, if I'm going to throw out young arms and hopefully they have big games and you can steal a couple of wins and move on to the next series, I'm not sure there's a team in baseball that has 3 young arms like that to just throw like. There's teams that obviously matter. Saw the Yankees last night with Garrett Cole, and you see teams around baseball with stars, like just young arms where you don't know kind of what to expect, but they're electric type guys. I'm excited. I mean, to me, this is. People have said the Heat is they're playing with house money in the finals. I don't. I get that theory, but I feel like the Heat are a championship team. I don't. And it's okay to say this. The Marlins aren't a championship team in the sense that this is nowhere close to where they want to be.
Right.
Most of their future is still developing, and whether it's the young guys I just mentioned or guys that haven't even played in the majors, this is a huge step to just the process of their growth to be in the postseason. So I wouldn't doubt that they could win 2 out of 3 in this series because of those young guys and their mentality of not caring, and they just the way they've gone through a season. But I think more exciting than anything, though, is that I think the future's bright for the Marlins. I think they have a lot of young players in the pipeline that are coming through, and this team has got a really nice core for the next few years.
Yeah, and it's the twisted part is that their minors didn't get their season, which would help for development. Their major league players didn't get 160. They only got 60 out of the 100. But the part that becomes priceless, dude, is that these dudes are going to walk away with playoff experience. And that itself right there is so freaking priceless, bro. It really
Jeter mentioned it the other day. Jeter said in his call the other day, he said, look, man, when I was young, I went through these experiences, obviously a little different play from the Yankees, the expectations, but, I mean, it's invaluable. Like, what you experience here, even from afar, even the guys that aren't playing, that are just like on the taxi squad or, and on the bench, just to be able to take this in at 21, 22, 23 years old, it's the best story in baseball, and if it weren't for the Heat in the finals, it'd be the best story in town.
I'm with you there, bro. Well, as always, my brother, thank you for taking some time and dropping some knowledge, man. By the way, walk us through your Sun Sports coverage today, because I know it's a little different since they're in the NBA Finals and you guys aren't carrying the games, but you have your pre and post stuff, right?
Yeah, so it's double. I'll do a double pitch. Number 1 for Channel 10. since we have the game from Channel 10, we have a pregame show at 8 o'clock, then the game, and then our news after. And then I know Fox Sports, Sun Sports does a great job. They got the whole crew at 7:30 starting to get the pregame going, and then a postgame. So they can't show the game, but they're going to have Jax and the whole crew and Eric and everybody, Crowdy, everybody keeping you informed.
All right, good stuff. And you have the Marlins on PLG, don't you?
Yes, sir, today and tomorrow.
Look at that, boy. You guys are dominating, my man. I appreciate that. Thank you, Will. I appreciate you, man.
You got it, We'll talk soon, buddy.
All right, baby. Be good. There you go. The great Will Manso joining us from Local 10. He's got the heat in 6 just like I do.